As the title states, Chapter 4 will give you permission to use your money. And that's important because what we find is most retirees and soon-to-be retirees don't know they can start using their money. They don't think they can start using their money. They're afraid to start using the money they saved for one specific purpose, which was to use it during retirement time. So for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, or 30 years, people saved money for retirement, meaning they saved money so they could use it during retirement. But now that they're retired, they're afraid to use it. So we want to give you permission to start using your money if you set up a proper retirement income plan that will allow you to do so and guarantee you will never run out of money. So as you read this chapter, you're going to find it, we feel, fascinating. The first lesson we want to teach you is that before retirement, it was always the goal for you to save as much money as possible. Well, now that you're retired, in some cases, it's very difficult to save money. Well, we'd like you to create a plan that allows you to receive so much income off your assets, you're able to save again. Wouldn't it be nice to start saving money again now that you're retired? And that's what part of this chapter is going to cover. But to actually save money, first you have to make money. You have to receive income from your assets to save some of that money. What we find is retirees are doing it backwards. Retirees are thinking they're saving money simply by not spending their money. Think about what that means. They think they're saving money because they're not taking income out of their assets and not spending the money. So it's kind of backwards because the only way you can save money is to get income and then take that income and put it somewhere in the form of savings. So we want you to create as much income as you possibly can and then use some of that income to save money. As each year goes by, your future actually gets a little shorter, and we don't do that to make you depressed or sad. We want you to start thinking that you probably should give yourself permission to start using some of your money. Because as each year goes by, we get older, we have 1 year left in our lifetimes, and we can't go back and recoup that time. So we want you to start now. We want you to start now giving yourself permission to use your money. In fact, we will help give you permission to start using and spending some of your money. What we think is that as you read through this chapter, you're going to see we really harp on the fact that we don't think a retiree can ever have too much income. You can never have too much income. We don't think that no matter how many assets you have, no matter how much income you can generate off that, you can never have too much income. It kind of is going to be like one of the other chapters in the book that we talk about. Would you ever turn down a raise? Would you ever turn down making more money when you were working? And no one would say yes. They always want to make more and more money when they're working. Well, the same thing should happen during retirement. You should make as much income as you possibly can because your assets do not provide you independence. Your assets do not provide you freedom. The only thing that provides you financial independence and financial freedom is making as much income as you possibly can off those assets for as long as you live. Think about that. Isn't that true? Does income give you freedom and independence, or does having this asset give you freedom and independence? We know 100% it's always going to be income. So we think it's also extremely imperative for you to receive enough income now to cover every single need you have, every single want you have now, but also to start putting away a little bit more money. If you could save money on a monthly basis right now, wouldn't that make you feel a little more financially free? Wouldn't that make you feel a little more financially independent? We want you to start feeling that way again. Saving money has made so many of our clients, so many retirees and soon-to-be retirees feel so good that they could save money again now, just like when they were working, and then they feel freer again. The second lesson that we want to teach you is that during retirement time, we don't want you to be in the asset accumulation mode. We like you to save money, but we don't want you to be in the asset accumulation mode. We don't want you to take risk with your assets. We don't want you to have volatility. We don't want you to lose principal. What we want you to do is start to understand that there's a difference between accumulating your assets while you're working and using those assets for income while you're retired. So in fact, the act of accumulating assets mandates that you not spend any of the assets. So think about it. If you're in asset accumulation mode when you're retired, it means you can't use any of those assets to spend. And that makes no sense because you save those assets to use them. So we have to get out of accumulation mode and directly into retirement income distribution mode. It is impossible to use an asset accumulation model to create maximum guaranteed lifetime income. So when you were working, you were in an asset accumulation mode. You weren't using your assets to spend, so you were willing to go through volatility, you were willing to suffer losses, and you didn't use any of your assets for income. So when you're in accumulation mode, it's impossible to create a plan that will guarantee your income will never run out. So you have to understand and switch from an asset accumulation mode to an income distribution model. What we also then like to ask and have you ask yourself is, can I afford to subject my portfolio to volatility and principal loss now that I'm retired? So can you afford, and are you willing to go through volatility? And can you afford, and are you willing to subject your asset base you have now to losses? Are you willing to have less money in your account tomorrow than you had today simply because the market went down? Almost every single retiree says, no, I'm not willing to do that, and no, I cannot afford to do that. So we want to make sure you ask yourself that question, and then you follow through and you position your assets so you do not have volatility and you do not have any potential for losses. You're going to read some great information in some of the upcoming chapters. One of my favorite chapters is titled 4,913 Days of Nothing, and talks about the stock market and the real rates of returns consumers received from the stock market during past recent historical time periods. So we want to make sure you see that in this chapter. It's kind of like a little summary. The third lesson you learned before retirement that we'd like to discuss is that you shouldn't spend your money. You were taught that you needed to save money, and to save money, you shouldn't spend as much money. Isn't that how you did it? Because you received your income, you paid for your house, you paid for your car, you paid for food, and the less money you spent on clothes, on entertainment, on new TVs, the more money you could save. So you were taught to be a non-spender. Well, during the time period when you were working, when you were accumulating assets, to accumulate assets, you had to save money. But you saved money for the specific purpose to have these assets at retirement time to use for income. So now you have to turn on the switch. You have to flip yourself over and decide, guess what? Now I'm a spender. Now I'm in retirement income distribution time period. I'm not in accumulation, I'm in decumulation. It's time to use my assets for income. And you really have to understand that you're no longer working. You're retired. You saved money for retirement that you could use those assets for retirement income. So it really comes down to the psychology of switching from being a worker in an accumulation mode to a retiree in an income distribution mode. The fourth lesson you learned before retirement that we'd like to discuss is that you should pay as little income tax every year as possible. And we agree that you should decrease and manage your income taxes as much as you can. The problem is during retirement time, if you decrease your taxes by not taking money out of your IRA till the last possible moment, you could be substantially increasing the amount of tax you're going to pay once you hit mandatory retirement IRA distribution age, which is age 70 and a half. So if you're 60 now, in many cases you can reduce the overall tax you'll pay and your beneficiaries will pay by taking out income now, not delaying it till 70 and a half. So we want to make sure you're aware of that fact, and we cover that extensively in the book. So in this chapter, Permission to Use Your Money, it really comes down to making sure you know you have the access, the right, and you should use the assets you save for retirement to provide you income as long as you set up a plan that guarantees your income will never run out for as long as you live, and if you're married, for as long as your spouse lives.